This portion of the John Fredericks Show is brought to you by Hargrave Military Academy. Attend an educational and informative open house event at Hargrave Military Academy in Chatham, Virginia. For more information, visit online at hargrave.edu. Hargrave Military Academy. Build his future.
Hey, joining us now live from D.C. is United States Senator Tim Kaine. And I just coined the senator as a part of the new Gang of Two in Virginia. It's out with a 6 and in with a new 2. Forget Saxby Chambliss. He spent $100,000 playing golf. He's out. And no more golf for Saxby on the taxpayer on the PAC dime, I guess. He's out. Saxby, good friend of mine, going back to Moultrie, Georgia. But now the Gang of 6 out, the new Gang of 2, the Tim Kaine, Mark Warner duet. How are you, Senator?
John, I'm good, but if it's a gang of 2, we got major problems. We've got to make it a gang of at least 51 and at least 218. So I'm hoping that we can get there as we get into this budget discussion.
All right. On your conference call yesterday, what was exciting to me about it is, look, I followed Mark Warner a long time. I've been a fan of his in a lot of areas. And I loved this Gang of 6 because I covered Saxby Chambliss when I was in
Georgia.
In
Atlanta, sure.
Yeah, so I got inside on that, and I would always go in there, and Saxby would send me over to Warner, and he would go bananas, and his hair would go on fire and stuff. He'd get all upset.
He would force you to read the PowerPoint over and over again.
Exactly. Between him and Bobby Scott, I got every graph ever made known to man. So my question is, both of you gentlemen, what's unique about this is you're both former governors. You're both from Virginia. You both balanced budgets. You both worked across the aisle. And what really riveted me yesterday is when you gentlemen both said, look, we got to work with Republicans. We're going to find a deal. And, of course, I was skeptical because of what Harry Reid said. Now, just share with our audience, how are you guys going to make this work?
Well, and John, I think skepticism is fair. I think you should be and citizens should be. Congress hadn't done a budget by conference, which is the way we're supposed to do it for 5 years. And actually, there hasn't been a divided Congress, one House, Dem, one R, that's done a budget conference since 1986. So I think skepticism is fair. But we just got to get over the uncertainty that we're shackling to the American economy. Right now, there's some strengths in the American economy, but Congress is the chain. Mm-hmm. Congress is the chain because we can't do a budget. And if people don't have certainty about what's going to happen, and they think, well, maybe the tax code will change in 3 months, or maybe we'll have a government shutdown in 5 months, then they hold back on investments that they need to make. So the stakes are high, and everybody outside Capitol Hill ought to be putting pressure on us to find a deal. What I'm going to say today, we had this hearing this morning, and I'll just give you a little preview about my message to the conferees. We're each going to have our 5 minutes. And I'm going to take a little bit of a different tack. I suspect House members will be saying our budget is great and the Senate budget's horrible, and the senators will say our budget's great and the House budget is horrible. What I'm going to say is we're not that far apart. The House and Senate budgets are at different numbers, and the difference is about $91 billion in year 2014. Now, that's a lot of money, but the federal budget's $3.6 trillion. So a $91 billion difference is about 2.5%. And actually, it's narrower than that because the House number is artificially low to give them a base to negotiate, and the Senate number, frankly, is artificially high to give us a base to negotiate. So the real difference between the two budgets is about 1.5%. You can't tell me that with everything on the line and with how good it would be for the economy if we find a deal, that we're going to stand there and say we cannot close a difference of 1.5%. Mm-hmm. State legislators do this all the time. Houses and Senates pass different budgets. Governors sit in the room with them, knock their heads, and we work it out. That happened when I was governor. So I'm going to say, first, we're not that far apart. Second, we all want to cut spending. But we just want to do it in a targeted way, not the gross across-the-board cuts that are not strategic. And secondly, Democrats in the Senate, when we cut spending, we want to not only go after, let's look at entitlement reform for Medicare, but if we're going to look at making entitlement reforms for seniors on Medicare, what about the tax entitlements, the tax expenditures, the tax breaks for the big five oil companies that are incredibly profitable? That's a kind of spending. It's called the tax expenditure. And we do $1.1 billion a year of of these tax expenditures, loopholes, breaks, credits, deductions. If we just were to reduce that form of tax expenditure by about 7%, and then couple that with an equivalent amount of cuts, we would put together a dynamic package that would help us reduce the deficit and also enable us to replace the ugly parts of sequester. So I'm going to go through a number of items where, the House and Senate are actually closer than folks might think as a way of encouraging us to go ahead and close the gaps.
All right, so what you're saying is you think at the end of the day, Senate number higher than they thought so they could negotiate, House expense number lower than you thought was a reality so they could negotiate. You take out the margins and you think maybe the real difference here is about 1.5%. And I think you nailed it. If you can't find that, 1.5%, anybody could be able to find that if you really work hard. Hey, final question, taxes. Now, on the call, I got the impression that you were not going to be in favor of raising tax rates.
Correct.
Is that accurate?
Absolutely. I think right now we've had testimony from economists, Martin Feldstein, who is the head of the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors under President Reagan, Mark Zandi, who's at Moody's right now. A lot of folks have been saying, at this point, raising rates, not a good idea. However, filling in all this Swiss cheese, the deductions, exclusions, credits, exemptions, is actually the right way to find some revenue. It would simplify the tax code. It would make it easier for people to do their taxes. It wouldn't, pervert the economy by, having people structure transactions to get a tax benefit rather than structure transactions to grow the economy and create jobs. So you can raise revenue if you do appropriate tax reform, but the Dems have said, no, we're not interested in rates.
Yeah, I think even conservatives, everybody has said the tax code needs to get reformed, and we need to close some of these loopholes that simply end up being targeted corporate welfare. That makes no sense. Senator Kaine, we're almost out of time. Final question. Look, Obamacare really getting raked over the coals now.
Yeah.
Forget that website. One thing I want to get your answer on, the President of the United States got on TV and he said to people this, you know what, you're going to be able to keep your policy. You're going to be able to keep your doctor. You're going to be able to keep your policy. I mean, this is the leader of the free world. This is the President of the United States. Now we're finding out, you can't really keep your policy, and he kind of, they was already told you couldn't keep your policy, and the insurance companies couldn't work through his regulations and offer the same policy. Now they're saying, well, he knew about that, but he didn't really say it. Not a good thing, is it?
No, the last couple of weeks on this has not been good at all. And John, and I think we probably have some disagreements on this. I'm a supporter of the Affordable Care Act for a variety of reasons. The ban on pre-existing condition, you get a rebate back if your insurance company overcharges you, and millions are, and the whole series of other things. But the whole issue of the policy here, you've got to have a functioning website so that people can purchase the policies and actually save money doing them. Some people are losing their policies because their policies don't comply with the minimal standards that we're now asking companies to write policies that, that don't ban you for pre-existing conditions or don't discriminate on the grounds of gender, and their policies don't comply with those standards. They'll be able to get policies that do and likely get them for a lesser amount, but that does depend on them being able to shop and find them, and that's why these website glitches are so discouraging. And I'll tell you this: from the day I walked into this place, I've been very open to reforms to the Affordable Care Act. I voted for my first ACA reform in March, and I'll vote for more of them. But when the other side only ever raises repeal, that's an easy vote for me. I vote no on repeal because I don't want to go back to pre-existing condition and lifetime caps and things like that. But if we have debates about reforms and improvements, we're going to find common ground to make a lot of reforms and improvements.
Is it possible the president may have oversold this plan and made promises that he was not able to fulfill?
Well, I actually have not gone back. I remember very clearly the president say you won't have to change your doctor. I have not gone back and looked at what did he say about you will not lose your plan. But look, whether regardless, people are being put into a situation where they're questioning, am I going to be able to get health insurance? And wow, I want to go buy it, but I can't even get on the exchange to buy it. That's not acceptable. We've got to fix it. I think once the exchanges are up and running and people can see what they can purchase and see the cost and also see the quality of the plans and the protections of the kind I've described, they'll say, wow, this really offers me something I haven't had before. But we got to get there.
All right. Well, good luck on the Budget Conferee Committee. I know if there's anybody that's going to make this work, it's yourself and Mark Warner, the new gang of two. Senator, we're out of time. We really appreciate your access and for being with us today and
John,
sharing
look forward to talking
your
again.
thoughts.